All right, we are back here on the podcast. March Madness rounds 1 and 2 are in the books here. Sweet 16 coming up on Thursday. Back with us once again to check in on what's going on in the March Madness situation here. Troy Mauriello is here. Troy, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Mike. Always happy to be on and talk some college hoops. Now, obviously, not the best weekend for me. My school, St. John's, is the one top two seed that doesn't get through. 7 teams get through, and in a tournament that's been historically low on upsets and Cinderella runs. Of course, my team is the one high seed that doesn't go through. So bummer of a weekend for me, but overall, always excited to come on and talk some college hoops with you.
Yeah, for sure. I will say before we'll get to the headlines of like other stuff in a minute. Of like the coaching carousel is very active for reasons that we didn't know why, but like I will say this weekend overall, a very let down first 2 rounds of the tournament. Like not a lot of great games early, very few upsets. We had one buzzer beater come on Sunday night. Like this was a letdown compared to like what you expected. Like especially when we got set up so well with Champ Week, giving us all these great games going down the wire. Here we got a ton of blowouts. Then we got some teases where teams have played good for 30 minutes and just fall apart the last night.
Yeah, we had a bunch of games that were really, like you said, really good games for about 30 minutes. And then, the final 5-10 minutes, one team kind of pulls away. And, it's not the cinematic ending that we thought we can get. We had the one buzzer beater with Maryland and Colorado State. But, I mean, outside of that, like we were saying, just, no upsets, no real major upsets outside of Arkansas over St. John's. And, that Arkansas team is now our Cinderella team, our one double-digit seed. They had a top 2 or 3 NIL in the country this season. It's a team built on NIL. It's a team with a ton of financial backing, and that's our one Cinderella. No mid-major conferences for the first time ever in the Sweet 16. It's all comprised of ACC, Big 12, Big 10, and SEC. We've never had that before. Only 4 conferences making up the entire Sweet 16. So. It led to a lot of chalk, and I wonder, if there's a gap coming between, the haves and the have-nots, where these teams are just so high-powered. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit, where these teams are just too high-powered that the mid-majors can't keep up, or if this was just kind of a fluke year, and not a fluke year, but we had so much high-level talent at the top that it didn't really matter who was there. Those teams were going to prevail. But it sets up for a really exciting second weekend of the tournament.
It does here. Let's get into some headlines here, including a very, very, very active coaching carousel here, and we know why it's coming here. We'll talk about the fact that the portal's already open in a minute, which I think is still ridiculous. They moved it a week from last year. It's still too early, but we have a lot of coach movement over the last week and a half here, including some big names moving here. So I think I'm going to do is give you some names who have gotten new jobs, get you some rapid fire takes on some of these guys, and we'll see what you think. You're starting out with one of the more controversial moves, at least on the tough week for West Virginia. Obviously, they don't get in the tournament, and then we find out they're not going to the Crown because Darian DeVries apparently was talking to Indiana the whole time and is now their new head coach.
Yeah, I mean, my rapid reaction to that is what a shame and a tough week, tough couple days for West Virginia. Like you said, you get absolutely snubbed out of the tournament, and then you find out that your coach was really just using you as a stepping stone for a bigger job. Had been planning to go to that job for a while now. Good hire for Indiana. I think he's a very good coach, but really, you feel bad for West Virginia more so in that case.
Yeah, it's just wild when you think about it, because you think about last year, Darian DeVries at his press conference, West Virginia's like, I've been waiting to get somewhere right here. I'm planning to stay here for a long time. And then first chance he goes, see ya.
Yeah. And I don't get as up in arms about this stuff now, because a couple of years ago it was, these coaches can say whatever they want and they can bolt at the first chance that they get, and the players, have to sit out a year. Now, obviously, the players have free movement to do whatever, but it still leaves a bad taste in your mouth when a coach, like you said, a year ago is saying that, and then boom, first chance he gets, he's out the door. It's a huge job in Indiana, and I'm not going to kill the guy for taking the Indiana job over the West Virginia job. It's a better job. You have more money to spend. There's a lot more tradition there. I would assume it's a little bit easier to win at Indiana than it is at West Virginia, although that hasn't really been the case the last 2 decades or so. But I'm not going to kill the guy, but at the same time, it does leave a bad taste in your mouth.
It does. It's very slimy the way that he handled it. It's the way, personally. We've seen other absences. We'll wait in a second how I think he kind of told his guys hey, when this is done, I'm out, and some of you guys can come with me if you want. But this is sort of It's sort of like the old Baltimore Colts flying, leaving for Indianapolis in the middle of the night kind of situation here.
Yeah, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Like you said, Will Wade has done it the right way or did it the right way. DeVries did not.
Yeah, let's speak about Will Wade now. He leads McNeese to an upset at Clemson. The next day, he is before like basically half an hour after the contract after they lose to Purdue, he has signed his contract with NC State, and this is a home run hire for NC State because as we talked about a few weeks ago, the ACC has lost a lot of coaching brain drain over the last few years, and Will Wade I think is like the second best coach in that league.
Yeah, I was gonna say he comes in and he's for sure a top three coach, if not like you said, the second coach, second best coach in that league. NC State's a school that obviously probably would have moved on from Kevin Keatts a year ago if he didn't make that Final Four run. I think it's a great hire. You've seen Will Wade has been able to win on the high major level. Got a second chance at McNeese and did a really good job there. Took them to a couple NCAA tournaments. Won a game this year. I'm sure he'll be taking a lot of his players with him. He'll be taking his manager with him for sure as well. So I just think it's a really good hire. It's a guy that's proven he can have success. And some of the stuff that he was getting in trouble for at LSU is now legal. So I think it's a really good hire for him.
Yeah, and good job by NC State sort of getting that done before they beat Clemson, because if he had still been not done yet, a couple of these other teams would have been swarming for him.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and there were going to be some bigger jobs opening up. We've seen even since the last couple of days some bigger jobs open up. Yeah, good job. That shows you if you have your guy, don't mess around with it. Get it done as soon as you can, because these jobs, there'll always be 2 or 3 jobs that open up that you didn't see coming. And get a job, get it done, as soon as you can.
Yeah, another one in this coaching department here. This is another sort of slime ball move here. Texas fires Rodney Terry, which is unfortunate because, what's he supposed to do there? He goes to tournament 3 times, including an Elite 8 runs, an intern coach. He gets fired. Sean Miller, who is only back in a job because Xavier took him back when nobody else would. Again, out in the middle of the night, basically, runs to Texas because they had an opening there at a big school. And in terms of Texas, you love to hire for Texas because Sean Miller is a very good coach and he's shown he can win at this level. But very slimy move by Sean Miller, who Xavier gave him a chance. No one else was willing to touch him, and now he's this first chance he gets, he's out the door.
Exactly. Yeah. Starting with the positive, Sean Miller's a really, really good college basketball coach. Led Xavier back to the NCAA tournament this year. You look at him in the NCAA tournament, almost always exceeds expectations. A really good tournament coach that Texas has been a team that's probably underachieved a little bit in getting to the NCAA tournament over the last couple of years. Certainly did with Shaka Smart, and now in the last couple of years either haven't made it or have been early exits. He's a really, really good coach to lead you in March for sure. But like you said, the negative, this is the slimiest one of all. Sean Miller's a guy who's had that kind of sleazy, slimy qualities to him when he was at Arizona. Obviously gets run out there, and then Xavier gives him this second chance. He does well with them. It seemed like when he went back to Xavier, that was going to be his school for a decade or so. They gave him a second chance essentially. He's back at that school where he kind of used them as a stepping stone once. You kind of thought that this would be the destination for him. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. It's a shame for Xavier. I can't fault Sean Miller. Listen, going from the Big East to the SEC is a big jump in terms of financial. Xavier to Texas, same thing. They have so much more money to spend at Texas than they will at Xavier. But at the end of the day, I don't like it. Again, I can't fault the guy for taking a job that's going to give the same thing with DeVries, taking a job that's going to give him a lot more of an opportunity to have money to spend and potentially make it far in the NCAA tournament. But it sucks when you go to a team and it looks like that's going to be your final destination, and they took a chance on you, and you basically bolt the first chance that you got. It's a slimy move by him.
Yeah, it's not the same thing as Will Wade McNeese, where everybody knew as soon as Will McNeese rehabbed his image, he's gone. Sean Miller made his whole thing sort of I'm coming home. Xavier is the place for me. I felt more alive than in the Big East, and then first chance he gets, he's gone.
Exactly. Yeah. With Will Wade, you knew that McNeese was going to be a stepping stone for the first high major job that came calling, and it ended up being NC State. Whereas Sean Miller, it seemed like that was where he wanted to spend, like I said, the next 5, 10, 15 years of his coaching career. And instead, the first high major that comes calling for him, too, he's out. So, yeah, I don't love that.
Yeah. I'll go another, the tournament coach you may have jumped here. Ryan Odom goes from VCU to Virginia. Very funny. You can think of the history, considering like he's the guy who led UMBC, the upset of Virginia, and then he ends up a couple different places here. Though, like Virginia struggled this year after Tony Bennett retired before the season started here. So I think good program builder here for Ryan Odom to give him a chance to actually get his system set in.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you said, built up a couple of different programs and a guy who is going to give you an identity. Virginia's identity for so long under Tony Bennett was, defense, play defense and win games, 55-47. They lost their identity this year. They had really no identity with him leaving so abruptly right before the season started. I like the hire of Ryan Odom, a guy who did a good job at VCU this year. I like the move for Virginia. I really do.
I do. I like that move as well here. Two other tournament coaches who made jumps here. Before we got on today, Nico Medved leaves Colorado State from Minnesota. So I know the Golden Gophers have been trying to get going for a while. They had a couple different coaches come in. Richard Pitino didn't work out there. Ben Johnson didn't work out there. I like Medved as a coach. I feel like he's getting into a tough spot here because there's a lot of good coaching talent in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I actually didn't see that one. You're breaking that news to me right now, but that's a great hire. I think Medved is one of the more underrated coaches in the country, and you saw him over this weekend. They were a crazy shot away from going to the Sweet 16. I love the hire, and you're talking about a Minnesota team like we've said that really has had no success to speak of over the last few years, and has kind of whiffed on a few coaching hires in a row. I think that's a pretty safe bet that he's at least going to have you in a position to win games. The Big Ten is so tough. We're seeing it now with how many Big Ten teams, how well they fared in the NCAA tournament. But I like that hire a lot.
Yeah, I like that one a lot here. Another one, I love this hire, and I think this made a lot of sense here. This one also came out this morning. Ben McCollum officially going to go from Drake to Iowa, and like it took a while for Ben McCollum to leave D2. When you look at his resume at D2, he won multiple national championships, multiple NCAA tournament runs. He's very selective about where he goes, so he goes to Drake, immediately wins 30 games at a tournament game. Now he goes to Iowa after they let Fran McCaffrey go. And I think he sees potential in that job because it sort of fits the same sort of markets he's in. And the Big Ten, Iowa has been very good as recently as 2021 with Luka Garza. So yeah. Ben McCollum there, I expect to make him to be a regular presence atop the Big Ten.
I love this hire. This is my favorite hire of the cycle so far. Like you said, the guy wins everywhere he goes. He won, so many games at the D2 level, and then won 30 games with Drake in his first season there. I love this hire. Sometimes it makes sense to just hire the coach that wins, that knows how to win, and this guy knows how to win. I think his win percentage of his coaching career is like 820 or something. Now he's not going to win that percentage of games at Iowa because it's obviously a big step up in competition from the D2 level and even from Drake's level, but I love this hire. He's a guy that just wins, and he figures out a way to win. And yeah, like I said, like you said, he's in that same market that he's been in. It's similar recruiting cycles. Now he's got a lot more money to work with. This is my favorite hire of the coaching cycle for sure.
Yeah, the thing I would love here is imagine Bennett Sturridge ends up going with him to Iowa. That'd be fun. That'd be a fun storyline to follow. See him get into because we saw how dominant Bennett Sturridge was in the Missouri Valley. Get him into the Big Ten, at least playing some of these elite teams week in, week out. It's gonna be a really fun story to follow.
Yeah, and we kind of had his coming out party in the NCAA tournament, where now he's on the national radar after kind of being under the radar, really, or one of the better mid-major players in the country. Yeah, that would be a really good get right away to boost up that roster in Iowa.
Yeah, and then let's go to the last hire, just a bucket that I'm sort of want to talk about here because we saw this a little bit with Florida State and Utah. Iona did the same thing where we were surprised they let Tobin Anderson go after he go to the MAC title game. They end up going with an NBA assistant in Dan Garrio, who was, I think he was the head guy for the Canton Charge for the Cavaliers G League affiliate. And we saw a lot of NBA guys. There's LeBron, Donovan Mitchell, Larry Nance, all came out praising his hire here. So it's interesting here because we've seen this trend now of a couple of schools. I think BYU really started with Jared Young, and now a few other schools have followed it here. The idea that we take the NBA assistant and bring him into a college setting. I know Iona's hiring a GM for the first time. It's first MAC play school to do that. Sort of see a different way to skin the cat and sort of try and do the pro style model with the pro style coach and try and get players in here with the idea of, hey, NIL, you'll get some money, you'll get coaching for guys coach pros. That's a different model some of these schools are going to try to go down.
Yeah, for sure. My coach Rick Pitino has said for the last 2 years now, this is professional sports now. We're not talking about amateurs anymore. These guys are getting paid. They're signing contracts. They're essentially on a 1-year deal, every single time that they play at a school. This is professional sports now, and I think that, like you said, you're going to see more and more schools go to that model of hiring a guy with NBA experience that has experience dealing with professional athletes, because you're not dealing really with college kids. They're college kids in age for sure, but they are certainly not amateurs anymore like they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. Just not the case. Teams are going to start hiring GMs. Like you said, Iona in the MAC is hiring a GM now because, you're managing a roster. Essentially, you're seeing where money is going to go, just like an NBA or an NFL GM would do. So it is professional sports right now, and if you don't embrace it, you're going to get left behind. Whether or not you agree with it, or at least the extent that it's gone to, because I think everyone agrees with paying players, but to the extent of how it's just the wild, wild west with NIL. Whether or not you agree with that is one thing, but you got to embrace it until there's some sort of bylaws put in. If you don't do it, you're just going to get left in the dust, no matter what level you're at.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about some of these open jobs here, and some of these are interesting here. The 4 big ones right now: West Virginia, Fordham, which obviously fired Keith Ergo after they struggled this year. Xavier, now that Sean Miller is gone. I've heard rumors of Chris Mack may go back there, which would be fun if they just recycle all their old coaches again. And Villanova, which fired Kyle Neptune. I heard rumors of Porter Moser. I don't know how realistic that is. But of these jobs, which one interests you the most?
Villanova, for sure. I mean, Villanova was a school that obviously with Jay Wright was almost a blue blood, like was legitimately on the precipice of being a blue blood, especially after the Big East broke up. They had about a decade there where they were a premier program in the country. I mean, 2 national titles, another Final Four. Jay Wright had them at such a high level. He retires, and they missed on the Kyle Neptune hiring. Like it was not the right hire. He did not get the job done. They had so much talent this year. They were one of the most disappointing teams in the country. We talk about Gonzaga, UConn. Those were at least NCAA tournament teams that were a little bit disappointing. Villanova did not even make the NCAA tournament and wasn't even really that close this year with all that talent, with Wooga Poplar, who is, I think, an NBA player, Eric Dixon, who was the nation's leading scorer, like two of the best players in the country. They were not even close to the NCAA tournament. They had so much talent on that roster. We know that Nova has money to spend. They, can bring in top level talent. It's about who's going to be that coach. I don't love Porter Moser for that job. I don't love the job he's done at Oklahoma. So we'll see where they go with it. But I think that's the most attractive job open right now is Villanova.
I will say, whether it's Kyle Neptune, whether it's a little bit with Huber in North Carolina here, to me, this cycle to me, I think is telling me, like, we need to stop worrying about keep it in the family when we do these head coaching jobs. Because to me, like, unless you have the guy who, like, your guy annoyance, like Shire at Duke, like, staying in the family is not the best thing. You're really limiting your pool of candidates to, like, who could be a good job fit here. Like, a lot of these family picks don't work. And they feel like you're burning your family members by putting them in this job and putting unreal expectations on them. Where if you bring in a guy from the outside, like, who doesn't have, like, these family ties, I think it works better.
Exactly. And Neptune was essentially picked by Jay Wright to be their next head coach, and that did not work out. Yeah, hire the best guy. Like, don't hire the guy who's, like you said, going to keep it in the family. Hire the best guy for the job. A school like Villanova should have no problem attracting high-level coaches to get in. They've won 2 national titles in the last decade, essentially. So they should have no problem. And they, like I said, they got money to spend. They should have no problem attracting really any coach that they want. Don't limit your pool to 10, 15 guys that have been on your coaching staff just because you want to hire a guy with ties to the program. That stuff doesn't matter anymore. What matters now is money. And if you've got money to spend, you can get any players that you want in the transfer portal, recruits. So hire the best coach. Don't worry about hiring the guy that has a connection to the school.
Yeah, and speaking of schools that have hires here, I'm really fascinated to look and go what Fordham does here, because when I first saw, like, Kyle Neptune got let go and Fordham fired Ergo, I'm like, this should be easy. Like, bring Neptune back. He was great for you guys. Like, he won a lot of games there. He's not even in the mix. According to the rumors that we've heard, they talk about Speedy Claxton. They talk about Rob Senderoff. They talk about Pat Sellers, Central Connecticut State. They talk about bringing back Tom Pecora, who's gone on to win 2 MAC Coach of the Year awards at Quinnipiac. So, to me, I don't understand the process of Fordham at all, because they seem to have, like, they're like a potential, like, untapped gold mine for college basketball in New York City, in the A-10, and they just can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's another school, like you said, can't get out of their own way. And we've seen the potential of, a New York City school that if you can produce, you can, if you make it to the dance, you can really take over the city. We saw what St. John's just did. over the last month or so. Fordham has that untapped potential, like you said. And yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. Like Neptune did a really good job there. Wouldn't be a bad hire certainly if they wanted to bring him back, but it doesn't seem like they're going in that direction.
Yeah, for me, that was the no. For me, that should be a no-brainer because, like, you give the guy a soft landing, he won for you, and
Yeah,
like, you can't blame him for going to his alma mater when, like, Jay Wright says, "I want you to take my place."
no, and for Neptune, he's not getting any high major looks right now after getting fired at Nova. If anything, he could probably land off as an assistant somewhere if he wanted to. But if he wanted to get a head coaching job, he's going to have to take a step down. And like you said, I'm sure they don't fault him at all for leaving for Nova. So a school like that would be a good, like you said, a soft landing spot for him because he's not drawing any high major interest. I wouldn't think after the job that he did at Villanova.
Yeah, I know there's also this weird sort of like thing where like Fordham and Iona don't really acknowledge each other in the athletic front here, but like this would also be a good like Tobin Anderson landing spot as well because I mean like not for nothing like Tobin had a lot to deal with at Iona in the 2 years he was there where like he comes in after Patino, the whole team leaves, and then he has to replace the whole team again the following year. Like I think I think he could do good there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's another guy that would be a nice, kind of small step up for him, at least in conference stature to the A10. I think he's a really good coach still, and obviously he got a raw deal at Iona for sure. Like you said, had to rebuild a roster 2 years in a row, and then really, gets let go really before he even got a chance to start building anything there. That would be a really nice step up for him if he wants to take it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're going that way either here. And my last thing before we get to the tournament here, I know we've got 20 minutes, but there's a lot going on here. The fact that the portal is open today on Monday after the first round here is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I just saw a tweet earlier that Scottie Pippen's son, who plays at Michigan, is entering the portal while his team's getting ready for the Sweet 16 game. I know he doesn't play much, but why are we doing this now? Why can't we wait till at least after next weekend to start the portal?
Exactly. And we have this same conversation every year. Like there's no way that they don't hear this. And I still haven't seen a reason as to why they do it now. Like do it in a week, like you said, where at least there's 4 teams left and it makes a little more sense. You still got 16 teams playing right now. Like you said, you've got guys playing a game on Friday that are in the transfer portal right now. It's crazy to me. And we have the same conversation every year with the NCAA, and they're stubborn about it. They will not change it. And you're putting teams at a disadvantage too. John Calipari after his teams went over St. John's on Saturday was like, when does the portal open? It opens on Monday. And he goes, now I'm having exit interviews with guys, asking them if they're going to stay or go while we're getting ready for a game against Texas Tech on Thursday. Like that's what these coaches are juggling now. They're juggling who's going to be on their roster for next year while also preparing for games in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight coming up this weekend. It's absurdity, and it doesn't make any sense. Like you said, push it back a week. At least, give it to where these and it's a disadvantage for these teams too. Not only are you not fully, focused on your game plan because you're trying to figure out who's going to be on your roster for next year, but it puts you, a leg behind these other teams that aren't playing right now. Now, granted, these teams have so much money to spend, they'll get top level talent regardless. But, if you're a smaller team that maybe doesn't have as deep pockets that's kind of made a run, you're going to be behind everyone else in terms of attracting talent just because you're still playing games. Why are we penalizing teams for making it far in the NCAA tournament to hurt themselves for the following year? It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, if you're one of these small school coaches too, you got to worry about your coach probably flirting somebody else trying to get a different job while he's doing that and trying to navigate the portal while at the same time. It's absurd.
Yeah. It's just and like I said, it's for the higher level teams, the Dukes and North Carolinas of the world. Like it's not going to matter for those schools because they can get whoever they want whenever they want. Essentially, it's these, like you said, a mid-major type school, or I know we don't have any of them this year, but a mid-major type school or a lower level power conference school that maybe doesn't have those deep pockets that can't just throw money at anyone. You're penalizing them for making a run in the NCAA tournament by putting them behind the 8 ball in the transfer portal. And then on top of that, if their coach wants to get to take an open job, they got to worry about that too. The timing of this, it just doesn't make sense.
It really doesn't here. Let's get into the first weekend of the tournament here. We talked about the top here. Very disappointing overall. And in terms of the potential for the future, I know this is a very interesting scenario where we have like all power conference teams. We have 16 teams. We have 7 from the SEC. Half their teams got to the Sweet 16, which is a record. 4 each from the Big Ten, and then the Big 12, and then Duke's our lone ACC team. So obviously this could be dramatic. I mean, 2 years ago we had basically a ton of mids in this point, like San Diego State, Florida Atlantic go to the Final Four. You wonder here, like, is this an outlier where, we have like the talent gap growing because of transfer portal, NIL, or is the case? I know friend of the podcast, Kevin Sweeney, said here, like, some of these, like, we had good quality mids in the tournament, but a lot of them just did not hit shots, and that's the reason why they didn't win their games.
Exactly. And I think I fall more in line with that line of thinking, whereas, yes, this was a year that no major upsets, no Cinderella runs, all power conference teams. And even last year was a lot of power conference, or a lot of chalk, really. I think there was only two mid-majors. San Diego State and Gonzaga was one of them in the Sweet 16 last year. So now we really haven't had any big-time mid-majors make a run, since 2 years ago, like you mentioned. But 2 years ago, we had San Diego State and we had FAU in the Final Four. So I'm not ready to completely sound the alarm yet. I remember when you had me on about a month ago talking about this season of college basketball, and the big topic was the top 15, 20 teams in the country this year are just so talented. And there's a big gap, we thought, between the top 15 and the top 20 and the rest of the country. And that's kind of how it played out. We didn't really see a lot of upsets. We saw really those teams kind of dominate this past weekend. I just think I don't think that's. I just think this was a very unique year in terms of that. I don't think that's going to be something that happens for the next 5-10 years. That the talent gap is just going to be that crazy. Like you said, we had some really good mid-majors. We had Drake win a game. UC San Diego. We had really, really good mid-majors this season that just didn't win. But I don't think that this is because of the transfer portal, that all the talent is going to the same 15, 20 teams. I just think this was a unique year where those teams were just so good. And the rest of the country really couldn't keep up just this year, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that here. In terms of, I'll give you the floor on St. John's here, because obviously they lose the second round game to Arkansas. Very disappointing effort here. Controversy at the end because Rick Pitino benches RJ Louise having a terrible game for the final 456. He gets pressed on after the game and gives a very blunt answer, non-answer. Like, you guys know why he's benched. Don't make me trash my own player when he's basically trashed his own player on the way out. And it's sort of like, I know it's a great year because obviously first time you win the conference tournament and the conference regular season in almost over 25 years. Now you're sitting here though, like, it's a very sour ending to what was a dream season here. Like, that's sort of the way this sport is, where like you got this great year and then one crappy day you're done.
Exactly. And I tweeted this out. It was probably the best year I've ever had as a sports fan. I'm a Cowboys fan too, so I haven't seen really much winning at all, at least in the postseason in my lifetime. This was the best season I've seen as a fan in my life. But it ended probably, 1 or 2 or 3 games too early. We thought that this team had Final Four aspirations, and maybe if the bracket broke for them a little bit better, they would have made the Final Four. But they played a really, really talented Arkansas team in the second round that was really athletic, that gave them a ton of problems on the offensive glass that just they couldn't keep up with, and they had never seen anything like that in the Big East. But yeah, you don't want to let it damper the unbelievable season that this team had. The only reason why we're let down right now is because expectations just kept going up and up and up. If you would have told me 2 months ago in let's say early January or mid-January, hey, St. John's is going to win an NCAA tournament game and then lose in the second round, I would have said that's great, because I would have figured they're probably going to be a 5, 6 seed. They'll win their first round game. They'll lose in the second round. Great. They just kept winning and winning and winning, en route to winning the Big East regular season and winning the Big East conference or tournament, that the expectations changed and they became Final Four. And maybe that was a little bit premature for a team that had a lot of flaws. But it doesn't make it feeling less hurt any less that they lost this round. But looking from the start of the season to now, if you would have told me this was the team that we were going to get, I would have been happy with it. And it was a great season. It ended too early. And in the NCAA tournament, your flaws are going to get exposed. Whatever flaws you have, you're going to play. If you're lucky enough, you play 6 games against 6 different styles of teams, probably from 6 different conferences. Like, if you have flaws, they're going to come out, and you got to be able to overcome them. St. John's 2 biggest flaws this entire season were 3-point shooting, and where they play a very physical game. And on defense, they play very physical. So if they played in a game that the refs had a tight whistle, they were going to be in trouble, and that's exactly what happened in this game. 2 for 22, and Kadari Richmond in foul trouble played 16 minutes. Simeon Wilcher, I think, played 15 minutes. They were playing Lefteris Leotopoulos in the first half for like 10 minutes at a time because were in so much foul trouble. So it was just a perfect mix of things that really knocked out St. John's. The thing is, they've been able to overcome that 3-point shooting at times, throughout the season because they had so much. They had been so good around the rim, getting second chance points, hitting mid-range shots, getting out in the fast break and getting turnovers. And they didn't do that. They didn't force a lot of turnovers against Arkansas. And their mid-range was terrible. They shot, I think, 28% from the field in this game. Zuby Ejiofor is really the only guy that was good around the rim. They shot 8 of 25 on layups in this game. So that was the problem. And obviously, RJ Lewis going 3 of 17 did not help. In terms of the benching, it wasn't just that he was not scoring and he was off his game. He was pressing, you could tell, and he was getting selfish. If you watch the shot right before Rick Pitino pulled him out of the game, St. John's was down by 2 at that point. They needed a good possession, and it felt like once they tied that game, they could break through and take the lead. And RJ takes a horrible off-balance shot with 2 guys on him, and he airballs it, and that was it for him. He started to play selfish a little bit, and he started to kind of revert back to the player that we saw his freshman year or his first year at St. John's, that wasn't team-oriented and that was kind of just trying to get his own stuff. So I don't necessarily disagree with the benching. I will say, though, it's a tough look to not, when you need 3-point shooting and he's your best 3-point shooter, and when you need scoring down the stretch and your best scorer is on the bench and, the second team All-American is on the bench, it's a tough look for Rick Pitino, and it's tough to defend. As a fan, when you watch the game, though, you can kind of see why it happened, but it's really tough, and it leaves a lot of questions, like you said, because he didn't really expand upon it in the post-game press conference.
Yeah, he really didn't here, and say what happens next for them in another day. So go some other big headlines here. I mean, obviously, this is a power conference world here in the Sweet 16, but obviously the ACC gets just 1 team through. Big East gets 0 through, thanks in part to St. John's flopping in the round of 32 here. Which of those leagues do you think had the bigger disappointment here?
I think it's the Big East. The ACC, we knew it was going to be Duke, and kind of we'll see what else we get. I don't think Louisville getting an 8 seed. I don't think anyone really had Louisville making this deep run. North Carolina shouldn't have even been in, as we talked about last week. I said I could see them going to the Sweet 16, but I don't think that was like the national consensus there. Clemson, I thought, could make a run. They go out right away. But they didn't really have any teams that you thought were really going to make a run. The Big East obviously had St. John's. They had UConn, 2-time defending national champ. They had Creighton, and they had Xavier and Marquette, especially Marquette going out in the first round, not even making it to the second round. You look at the Big East, it was a disappointment for the Big East to get 5 teams in and for none of them to make it out of the first weekend. It's a bummer. So the ACC, the expectations weren't really that high for them. I think the Big East, we at least thought we can get 1, if not 2 teams into the second weekend, and to not even get any is a shame.
Yeah, I think I would disagree with you because the Big East, based on the draws, you would say, okay, like St. John's should get there, but I only had one. That's the only Big East team in my bracket getting through. The ACC, I mean, Duke is Duke. They're get through. It's just fine. Louisville as an 8 seed with a home game, basically, against Creighton, lays an egg. Clemson scores 13 points and a half. And then that's basically the reason why they can't win their game against McNeese, because if they played like they did the whole game, the second half, they would have won that game pretty easily here. And you got North Carolina, where all the Tar Heel people are out there beating their chest, going, "We blew out San Diego State. We belong." And then they get smacked by Ole Miss in the first half and have their fake comeback in the second half here. Very bad look for the ACC.
Yeah, and talk about Clemson, the most disappointing team, in my opinion, in this year's NCAA tournament. Like we said, I had them going to the Final Four. How silly I looked when they scored 13 points in the first half of their game. I thought that team was going to be a problem. They beat Duke this season. I thought that they had a chance to really make a run. I thought that the bracket was going to break nicely for them. I thought that they had a chance to beat Purdue in the second round and then kind of see what happens in the third round. But man, just a letdown of a performance from them. And yeah, I mean, the ACC as a whole was for sure a letdown too. But Clemson, I think, is the most disappointing team, or should be the most disappointing team in America right now.
Yeah, they're definitely way up there. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened here in this first two rounds. Although I will say, like, the thing that was disappointing was like even the upsets we had felt kind of predictable. There wasn't really like the shock moment, like, oh my god, this 3 seed lost to like a 14, or like the two fell at 15. Like, we got none of that really. Like, even our upsets we really had. Like, a lot of people were on Drake,
Yep.
a lot of people were on McNeese. A lot of
Hmm.
people were on like North Carolina out of the first four,
Hmm.
upsetting like upsets.
Colorado
Right?
State too. A lot of people.
Colorado State was a lot of people's picks there. Like, there
Yep.
wasn't that really one like, wow, nobody had this happen.
Yeah, exactly. And even, like the 2 versus 15 or the 3 versus 14, a lot of times you'll get one of those games that sure the higher seed wins, but it like comes down to the wire. There's 3 minutes left and it's a 4 point game, and watch out, this might be an upset. We didn't even really get that. Like St. John's was up by two in the closing seconds of the first half in their game, and then they end up winning by 30 in the second half. Like Auburn got tested a little bit in the first half of their game. Alabama got tested a little bit into the second half, and then they kind of pulled away as well. Like, we didn't even really get big time upsets coming down to the wire where there was the potential for them. It was just a lot of blowouts. I mean, Duke's first round game was in Florida's. They were over before they even started. They shouldn't even be playing those games. So it was just a lot of lack of excitement, lack of drama. Like you said, the upsets were not these crazy upsets that no one saw coming. So yeah, definitely a letdown in terms of the madness that we're so used to.
And I will say the ones that we came close, especially like UC San Diego, I'll point out here, Gonzaga at the end of their game here, like some really, really bad end of game offense from these teams too. That would try and pull these upsets.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and even UC San Diego, like that was one that a lot of people had. But yeah, that final possession for them was a real letdown. But yeah, again, like another one that a lot of people had them beating Michigan. I think I had them beating Michigan as well. So not even, and I had Gonzaga beating Houston as well. So I mean, they had a really good effort to come back in that game, but yeah, really two teams that really let themselves down with the way they executed down the stretch.
Yes. Any big losers from the first weekend you want to touch on? Your big surprise teams.
Um, Big surprise losers. I mean, we kind of hit on Clemson already. St. John's for sure. It's tough when you had so many higher seeds go through that. I mean, I guess Kansas is another one. I mean, preseason number one to not even make it to the second round and to kind of blow that game against Arkansas is a letdown for them as well. I mean, we talk about disappointing teams. They're probably up there as well for most disappointing team in America. Preseason number one to not even make it out of the first round. Iowa State, I know they were injured, but I had Iowa State preseason. I thought they were a lock to go to the Final Four. I thought that team was so good and really looked so good for the first couple of months of the season. Then started to deal with injuries and really got caught up for them. But they weren't even competitive against Ole Miss. So Iowa State, Kansas for sure, two big letdowns for me.
Yeah, Wisconsin too. Losing the shootout
Yeah.
against BYU was not great.
Yeah, yeah, that was a team I think a lot of people could see making a run as well. They've been very disappointing in March, Wisconsin. With Greg Gard, it seems like they're always, not well, they're playing good basketball going into the tournament, but they always seem to let down. Once it comes to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'm looking at Greg Gard right now in terms of he made two Sweet 16s his first 2 years, and then
Yeah.
since then, 2017-18 missed the tournament. 19 first round bounce. 2020, we know what happened there. 21 round of 32. 22 round of 32. 23 NIT semifinals. 24 first round. 25 second round. So he's not gotten out the first weekend since his second year there.
Yeah, and that's a program that's been to a national title game. Like they have expectations. Wisconsin basketball is not, they're not a football school. They think that they're a basketball school as well. Yeah, and to not get out of the first round since your first 2 years, they're going to start asking questions. He's a great coach. He's an awesome coach, but you got to win in March eventually. Another one by the way, like that Shaka Smart with
Yep.
Marquette.
Yep.
Team that preseason had a case to go to the Final Four. I know they lost their top two players, but they brought back Cam Jones, and a team that through December, January looked like a Final Four contender to fall apart at the end of the year. I think they went like 4-6 in their final 10 games. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but to fall apart at the end of the year, disappointing performance in the Big East tournament, and then completely let yourself down. That game that they lost against New Mexico is the game that we've seen them lose all year long, where they just falter down the stretch, where no one can step up except for Cam Jones. That's just such a disappointment to not even to be a 7 seed, first of all, when they were a top 10 team for most of the season to start the year, and then to not even win an NCAA tournament game. Such a letdown for them as well.
Yeah, just to give you a little check on Marquette, I did go into the files here, into their schedule here. They beat Butler on January 28th, their last game of January. They were 18-3 overall, 9-1 in the Big East, and they were 9th in the country. They went down the stretch. They won 5 more games and lost 8.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, I mean it's terrible. And you know, for Shaka Smart is a guy who just consistently underperforms in the NCAA tournament. It's what he does. You know, he had one awesome run, and since then it's been letdown after letdown after letdown. And now, really, these last couple of years with Marquette as well, it's been more of the same for him.
Yeah, he lives off the reputation of that first Final Four run, because I looked it up. Like, he's been to the tournament, I think, like 12 times since then, and he's gotten out of the first weekend once.
Yeah, and it's not like you're coaching these mid-major teams. You're coaching Texas and you're coaching Marquette. These are schools that expect to go to Final Fours at the very least. Like you said, go to the second weekend, and he's not even doing that. Another guy, he's a really good coach. You could tell he's a great motivator, but just something happens in the NCAA tournament that he cannot win. I
still remember 2 years ago when he was a 2 seed, and Izzo with a very mediocre Michigan State team coach circles around him in this second round.
Yeah, it's strange, like I said, because he's such a good motivator, and you can tell that he is a good coach because the guys believe in him. But something happens for him. The switch turns in March, and he can't get it done.
I will say though, I think Sunday saved the first weekend a little bit, because you had that great UConn Florida game to kick off the day. You had the buzzer beater with Maryland and Derek Queen. Michigan State New Mexico was a very good game in the late window here. There were a lot of good games on Sunday, which was Arizona Oregon had a crazy ending as well. Like, there was a lot of excitement on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I'll say about the second round TV schedule, I know we love to talk about this type of stuff.
Oh, I know you hate the standalone games so much.
What's up with the standalone games? Especially on Saturday is one thing. It's whatever, you know, everyone's up late, whatever. Why on Sunday are we putting 3 games from basically noon to 6 p.m. and then we pack in the other 5 games from 7 p.m. on, and we got games overlapping. We got 3 games going on at once. Play 2 at once. Like, it's not that hard, so that we can actually see all of these games, so that most of America, what time did that Oregon game tip off? Like 10 o'clock? Like these games are too late for people to watch them. Put them on TV where people can see them. But yeah, Sunday was a great game. UConn Florida was awesome, which was good because it was the standalone game. We got screwed with the standalone on Saturday, being McNeese and Purdue. It was over before it started. And then you're just sitting there waiting for 2 hours. The Duke game was the same thing. Like, the Duke game tips off, and it was kind of close for a little bit, but by halftime it was over. And then you're just sitting for the next game, waiting for the Kentucky game to start. So they got to do a better job with the schedule.
The schedule I'm with you on, because I saw the Saturday one, like, my eyes just started bugging. I'm like, how are the 2 games of the 1 seeds buried on TBS at like 6 o'clock and 8:40? Like, when we're starting off with McNeese and Purdue, which is not a compelling matchup whatsoever. And like, we're saying Amir Orakan got this game as a standalone game. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I guess it's because they wanted Pitino and Cal as the 240 standalone, that they kind of had to do that. They had no option. But I almost feel like you could have put that game, like, that game was going to get a rating either way, whether you put it at 2 o'clock or whether you put it at 7, 8 o'clock. I thought for sure that game was going to be a nighttime game. So I guess they had no option. But yeah, it's like you can't be putting McNeese in a standalone game to open the second round.
I think what they should have done is honestly flipped it and just had that pod with Auburn and Houston lead off the day. St. John's is the 5 o'clock game on Saturday, and then McNeese is the late game on Saturday. Because I know, like, Saturday night, who cares? Like, nobody's watching TV on Saturday night.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought for sure St. John's was going to be that whatever it is, a 5:15 start or something on Saturday. Patino, Cal. And they could have done that game first, McNeese second, and bury that when there's 3 games going on, and have Houston and Gonzaga as a standalone game. That we should be doing the schedule for them, because it's just that every year they get it completely wrong.
To be fair, Sunday I projected it. Like, I pretty much had it right. I flipped the order of the 2 games in Cleveland, but I had that right because I said, like, UConn to Duke to Kentucky was the way to go. They handled that correctly. But the problem is just that CBS pays for, like, we want the one game where nobody's flipping off of us, like in 2 games.
Yeah.
And like when the problem is, I think they did the schedule right, where they put like the Arizona Oregon is the last game because who cares if that tips off at 9:40 because that the people watching that game are West Coast, so like that's like 7 o'clock for them. That's fine, but like you don't love having the first round of the NCAA tournament end at like 11:57 Eastern on Sunday night.
Yeah, it's tough, and even you knew Duke was going to be one of those standalone games for sure. The problem is Duke has been blowing everybody out this year. That it just leads to people are changing the channel anyways because they don't want to see Duke blow someone out. So,
I mean, I kept like arguing on Twitter. It's like, oh, they're gonna put Duke at 5:15 because it's Duke. I'm like, your alternative then is they're gonna put Kentucky on CBS for sure. It's like you're leading the day with Ole Miss and Iowa State in a standalone. Like, no way.
No one's watching that. Yeah.
And I said Sunday's more important than Saturday. They did schedule it correctly here, but let's go ahead to the Sweet 16 here. Kind of go around these regions real quick. So, where you want to start? You want to start on the Thursday games or you want to start on the Friday games?
Let's start with Thursday.
All right. So Thursday we have the East region down in Newark. You got BYU, Alabama. That's the first CBS game, and Arizona, Duke. So, what do you think about the East region here?
BYU, Alabama, race to 100.
Yep.
First team that gets to 100 is winning that game. Arizona, Duke. Listen, I think Duke got the easiest draw. Obviously playing a very easy 8-9 seed, and then I thought Arizona was the weakest of the 4 seeds as well. So I think Duke rolls in that one, but I really want to see BYU, Alabama. I think that's going to be those are 2 elite offenses. It'll be an awesome offensive show. And then you get Duke in the late night slot that I think that they'll roll over Arizona.
Yeah, and these teams played early in the season, Arizona and Duke. Yeah. In November at Arizona, Duke won by 15. They were not even fully formed yet. So like, unless Caleb Love is going for 45 on Thursday, I think Duke is safe.
Yeah, I guess that's the only storyline to watch with that game is Caleb Love gets another shot at Duke. But yeah, I think that they roll.
Yeah, I love that BYU Alabama game being first though, because I think that game that'll get people interested because like if you put Duke first and Duke blows them out, like you have a chance people are flipping off.
Exactly, yeah, and honestly, BYU Alabama is the more watchable game. Like I think Duke is Duke, and you're gonna want to watch them regardless for Cooper Flag. But BYU Alabama is going to be a better game. It's almost guaranteed.
Yep. Other pod on that day is the West region. We have Maryland and Florida first, 7:40 on TBS, and True TV is doing a simulcast of some sort. Then Arkansas, Texas Tech is the buried game after 10 o'clock on the East Coast. So this one, to me, like the way that the seeds played out, this feels like the Florida Invitational as well.
I agree. I was going to say the same thing. I think Maryland's had an awesome season, and Maryland has really been impressive these last couple of months. They obviously have their March moment with the buzzer beater, but I don't think that they have the firepower to keep up with Florida, especially when they don't go that deep into their bench. I think Florida. I think Maryland hangs with them, but I think in the end Florida just overpowers them. And then in terms of Arkansas and Texas Tech, I kind of like Arkansas, in an upset in this game. I just saw them up close and personal against St. John's. This team is not playing like a 10 seed right now. They're playing like a 5-4 seed right now, like a top 15, top 20 team, which is kind of what we thought they'd be at the start of the year. They're finally healthy. They're almost fully healthy now. I like Arkansas to knock off Texas Tech. That's my one big upset, I guess you could say, of this round.
Yeah, I will say in terms of this game, I'm with you on the Florida Maryland thing. I think Derek Queen did the one shining moment people a solid by giving them a buzzer beaters. They had nothing really work with the first tournament besides Nick Neese manager, but I think they're going to lose there. I'm on Texas Tech in that other game because I think to me, like, unlike your guys, St. John's can unlike your guys, St. John's, Texas Tech can score, and they're the best player on the floor, JT Top. That's a big difference. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's going to be a great game regardless. I would have loved to see St. John's play Texas Tech, but I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and if you want to go to Newark on Thursday night, be ready to pay because according to ESPN, get-in price is $245 for that building.
Which is crazy because none of those teams are big draws besides Duke. Like you're just paying a Duke tax. Like there's no other team that is that big of a draw. Like Alabama's not drawing much to Newark, and certainly BYU and Arizona aren't. So that is just straight to see Duke and to see Cooper Flag. You're paying that much money, and it's only going to go up.
Yep, it will only go up here as you get closer to the game here. We'll go to Friday now. We can start with the South region. That's the CBS window here. You have Ole Miss, Michigan State first at 7-10. That's the closest spread of the round right now. Sparty favored by 2.5, and then Michigan, Auburn in the late window here. So what do you think about the South?
I really want to see Michigan State versus Auburn in the Elite Eight. I just think that would be such an awesome game between two really good coaches, two legendary coaches. Give me Michigan State versus Auburn in the Elite Eight. That's Ole Miss has had a great year. We've seen Ole Miss and Auburn. We've seen Michigan State and we've seen Michigan. There's the storylines there as well. I don't think Michigan is going to hang with Auburn. Michigan's underseeded for sure. They should not be a 5 seed, like we said last week, probably closer to a 3. To be honest, but I want to see Michigan State versus Auburn. Michigan State was my Final Four pick. They're one of my 2 Final Four teams that I have left. So I really want to see them and Auburn in the Elite Eight, and I really hope that we get it.
Yeah, I think the Michigan State Ole Miss game is probably the highlight of the round for me in terms of like potential interesting games here, because Sparty had their issues against both New Mexico and Bryant to a degree, for their depth pulled away the second half here. I think, obviously, you had the Chris Beer factor where Beer knocked them out of the Final Four in 19 when he's at Texas Tech, and they're red hot. And a fun fact from Michigan State that's to overcome historically, I don't know if you're aware of this, no team that has ever been unranked preseason up as a top 2 seed in the tournament has gotten to the Final Four, which your guys fell victim to that. So Michigan State's also in that boat. We'll see if they can break history there.
Yes, yeah, I did see that, and that's a crazy. Some of these like, no team that hasn't been ranked in the week whatever preseason poll has won. Like, some of them are a little fugazi, but that one holds some weight. Like when you talk about teams that completely overachieved really in the regular season, don't get it done in March. We'll see about Michigan State. They strike me as an Izzo Final Four team, but we'll see.
Yeah, as a Sparty backer, I also had them in the Final Four. The one thing that concerns me is obviously like, they rely on their depth, their physicality. They can get to the basket here. Like, if they're not hitting enough, if they can't slow down Auburn enough, and I think Auburn gets by Michigan, I think the 2 big thing is going to be physical, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get past the Tigers. The thing over is like if Auburn gets around that defense, starts making shots, I don't know if they have enough firepower to keep up.
Exactly, yeah, and I mean, Michigan State and St. John's, very similar profiles as well. Same thing, if you have a team that can just overpower you in terms of their shot making ability, it's really tough. And Auburn is one of those teams that can certainly do that.
Yeah, and the get-in price down there, $536.
See, that one makes sense though, because you got Michigan State, you've got Auburn,
in Atlanta,
you got Michigan, and it's not even that far of a trip for Ole Miss as well. So that one at least makes sense.
Yeah, and that's in Atlanta too, which means there'll be a ton of Auburn fans in that building.
Yeah, exactly. It's right there near Auburn, and then Michigan and Michigan State are going to travel regardless.
All right, so the last region here, we have the Midwest region, which, by the way, Houston having 3 teams that close to their pod are going to get more fans in the building than they are is a real screw job by the committee.
Yeah, I mean, another just, what are we doing? Did they just think that Purdue was not going to make the second weekend, and they just figured, that wasn't going to be an issue because they won't make it because they'll choke early again? What are we doing here with Purdue playing again a game in their backyard against Houston? It's just not fair to Houston. I mean, if Houston makes the Final Four, talk about how battle tested they're going to be playing Gonzaga, who should not have been an 8 seed in the second round, playing essentially a road game against Purdue in the Sweet 16, and then having to play either Kentucky or Tennessee, 2 of the top teams in the SEC, in the Elite Eight. Like, that is a battle-tested team. That is going to be one of the toughest roads to the Final Four you can ever have. And if they get through that, I don't know who they're losing to. But I like that game a lot. And I think Kentucky and Tennessee is maybe my most looked forward to game of the weekend. Kentucky's had their number this year. They beat them twice. Can you beat them a third time to get through? I know Tennessee, has struggled shooting the ball against Kentucky in both of their first 2 matchups. That's a fun game. I'm really looking forward to that, to seeing the third matchup between them.
Yeah, I wish they were not at the same time. Like, that really bothers me, is that Michigan State being at the same time. Like, having both of them early kind of sucks, because, like, those games, like, I would want to watch, like, to stand alone, basically. But, like, they're basically up against each other. And the Kentucky-Tennessee game, I think one thing of note here, yes, Kentucky swept them. Very hard to beat a team 3 times, and Lamont Butler's playing on one shoulder. He's a big part of their defense.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you see it every year. The team sweeps regular season and loses in either the conference tournament or if they meet again in the NCAAs. And yeah, Kentucky's just, it sucks because they were, Kentucky was I mean, they still have a chance, but they really would have been a national title contender if they
Yeah, if they
just killed them too.
yeah, if they had stayed healthy, they would have been a very scary team. But like they did
Right?
not.
Like I think they would have been a national. I mean, they still might be, but they would have been a real national title contender.
I think they were a 1 seed if they stay healthy.
Exactly, I think so too.
All right, so Final Four, Coles. Obviously, we both whiffed on Clemson. I have 3 Final Four teams. You have 2. Who are you going with Final Four?
Okay, so in the East, I'm sticking with Duke. I don't see. I think Alabama gives them a game, but I don't see Duke losing in the West. I will. I'm going to take the 1 seed Florida because I think it ends up being Arkansas versus Florida, and I think Florida gets by Arkansas. They've seen them before; they know what to deal with. In the South, give me Michigan State still. I'm roll with them early, so I'm going to ride with them still. And in the Midwest, I'm going to go with Houston. So I think that we saw a lot of chalk early. I think that we continue to see a lot of chalk with 3 1 seeds and a 2 in the Final Four.
All right. In terms of Final Four, I feel like obviously I'm going to ride Duke. This is the Duke Invitational. Duke, I feel like, has got this on lock, and Coronation, Newark. I'm going to back Tennessee in the Midwest. I think obviously there will be Kentucky. Houston, I think, will get back Purdue, but the home court advantage Tennessee will have. Their fans will flock there compared to Houston. Rick Barnes finally has his moment, gets back to the Final Four for the first time since 2003 with Texas. West Florida, Walter Clayton, I haven't talked about him enough. All-American first-team performer. Great shooter here. What he's going to come since Dion is amazing, and he's going to put the Gators through. And then the Midwest, I will reluctantly back Michigan State. I know that they're my guys, and I took them here, but I would not be shocked if they lose to Auburn here. What I saw the first week did not encourage me about their chances to get past a team like Auburn's firepower.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And you talk about Walter Clayton. How about that Iona team 2 years ago? Walter Clayton, Danish Jenkins, and Ellie Jr. Joseph, 3 guys that would have been. I mean, Walter Clayton is one of the best players in the country right now. What a team that was! That really. I saw someone say if they played anyone but UConn, they were winning a first round game.
I think if they played one on UConn, they might have a Sweet 16 team that year.
For sure. That's insane, the talent that they had on that roster. Absolutely crazy. But I think most people are going to say Florida and Duke are going to the Final Four. Those are the 2 that I think easiest path, and they're going to overpower. I mean Duke for sure, and I think Florida overpowers anyone else in their region. The other 2 are kind of more up for grabs.
Yeah, so we had a fun weekend here, Troy. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social media, can do that?
For sure. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Troy Mauriello. That's Mauriello. Big St. John's. I'm very active on St. John's Twitter. So we're now in the off season, so it's portal season. Let's see who Rick can get for next season to reload. So we will see.
Yeah, Rick's drawing portaling, and maybe next week when we check in on the Final Four and whatnot. Maybe we'll keep an eye on the Crown, see if this thing's actually worth monitoring as an NIT alternative.
yeah, we will see.
All right, Troy. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.